How you doing? As you watch this, you're hopefully getting ready for the England versus Samoa Rugby League World Cup semi-final. I'm got in the international mood. I've got my old Poland Rugby League polo shirt on then in the World Cup. But I've got to put something on for the Rugby League Coach podcast that I'm going to record shortly. That's why I'm sat here. Look, England had an excellent tournament, haven't they? Have they been tested, though? You could argue they should have been tested in the first game, round one against Samoa, but we all know they were undercooked. What I did see in that game, though, there was a few minutes where Samoa put England under some real pressure. And I think now that Samoa will be better suited at putting England under some more pressure going forward into this game this weekend. England are a high completion side, so to be within any chance, what Samoa have got to do is tackle underneath the ball. Hopefully, England spill it. They've done that a couple of times in this tournament, England, when somebody's put their shoulder in under the ball. But number two, they've got to complete sets as high as England to stay in the game and stay in the arm wrestle. But to prove some of my points, let me share my screen with you. Hopefully you can see this screen or we're in real trouble. I've pulled some clips from various parts of England's defence. Now look at that. That was a one pass. And look at the English defensive line. One pass. They're already almost three defenders in from the sideline. You've read what I put in a post pertaining to the New Zealand defensive line, the split being off. I would argue this isn't quite right too. The other thing, a defender all the way back here. That a defender should be up here. They've essentially got one less person in defensive line. If Samoa are willing to move the ball around a little bit, they might catch England short. We've got bits of footage here that show France putting England under some pressure. England rush out. I'm not sure that was the right thing, but then the defenders on the edges turn their hips in and try and fix the issue. And with a bit of broken play, England have found a little bit wanted in defence. They've got a dead Marine here at marker. Luckily for England, France run out of plays in the set. Now, I'm going to show you a full set here. Let's see what patterns we pick out. I think England, and I guess with a coach like Sean Wayne, who's really going to get some fire in the belly, I think sometimes a defence can tip over to being a little bit too aggressive. And I think England's line speed's really good, but I think sometimes the spacings are inconsistent. I think sometimes the collisions are inconsistent. The split can sometimes be inconsistent, as you've seen in the previous clip. But also, what can also be inconsistent is the defensive line keeping line discipline. So I think Samoa have got plenty to go at if they want to stay in the game and in the arm wrestle with England. Let's again watch some more of France. You'll see the England defensive line on the short side having a little snooze. You'll see inconsistent ruck control there and collision. You'll see inconsistent ABC. There is stuff to go at for Samoa. Not long after this, France scored some points. Here you'll see France are now in the good ball position. England are defending on their own goal line. And if I just pause the tape here, you could argue that there's possibly a bit too much space in and around the A, B, and C there too. So lots of things to consider. Look at that gap just there between the markers and a defender, if somebody wants to test that. And that try there was a result of lots of go forward because of poor ruck control from England. And when you've got go forward, you're more likely to get on the end of a kick like that rather than a defensive team that are on the heels and have to turn round. Ever so briefly in the Newcastle game, Samoa put England under some pressure. And they put them under some pressure by moving the ball 2 or 3 out, offloads and ad-lib football, footwork at the line. Watch this set, how it unfolds. England, as we know, dominated this game. Have you noticed that quite often the English A defender is the first to get off the ruck and then is the last to get up? Watch this. So, I don't know if I made sense then, sorry. But what I meant is, you see, he got off the ruck there, so he detached, and he's rushing back to A. They've let him up, and he's a bit behind the line. So obviously, if they want to turn the ball back underneath Samoa, we've seen a couple of opportunities there, and against France where they leave a bit of space there. This set unfolds. I see a lot of English people falling off tackles. They are getting covered, but they're not. The ruck control isn't great. Samoa sneak down the short side. That's passive tackle from England. They haven't been under a lot of pressure in this tournament, and it'd be interesting to see when Samoa inevitably do put them under a little bit of pressure at the weekend, how England respond. I think England, the tip in the balance between a defence that is in control and that wants to play aggressively. I've also mentioned the split to you previously. Look at this now. So, this is a clear indication of how the defensive split is. So there's 5 there and 4, and I think the wings over here somewhere. That is perfect, but it's very compressed. So, again, there's opportunity for Samoa to exploit that compression if they want to. Yet on this split, after one play, I would argue there still should be 5 defenders on this side. Instead, there is only 4. So if Samoa are prepared to look up and play early, there is going to be opportunity. And I think one thing that Samoa showed against Tonga, they've got a bit more football in them now than they did earlier in the tournament. As we unwrap these sets, you'll see some of the trouble that Samoa put England under, but all too briefly. Look at this. Luai's footwork is going to be even sharper this week. He's had a good tournament. He's warming into it. And a lot of people forgot about this phase of the Samoa play because the scoreline was so one-sided. But if the halftime hooter hadn't have come when it did, I think England might have been in a little bit more trouble. Here's a bit more of Jerome Luai. This is the next attacking set that they had. Again, the defensive split is a little bit off. Samoa moving the ball quite well. But you can tell here their combinations aren't quite right, but they are offloading. They are looking up and playing. There's Sualihi, who got cleared to play. And then the halftime hooter came around then. When it comes to what England can exploit, even though Samoa have really improved in this tournament, they're one of the few teams that don't have that much compression in the opposition defensive area. They are quite wide here and they're quite heavy, the players, a lot of them. So that means that with good direct running, with change of direction, England are going to have some joy. You may also notice here on the fringes that defenders are already starting to turn their hips in. This is going to be manna from heaven for England if they continue to look up and play like they have done quite often, to be fair to them. Now, I talked about the English defensive line losing some numbers. The Samoa one did that quite consistently throughout the game against Tonga. But it was 2 sides that were relatively direct. Look at the dead marine at the marker there. Look at the passive tackles. If England are ready to go toe-to-toe, they're going to have plenty of joy because of the spacings in the Samoa defensive line. And then just to illustrate the point, let's have a look at this set again. Samoa have an inconsistent amount of people in tackles too. Sometimes it's 2, sometimes it's 3, sometimes it's 4, sometimes it's 204 or feels like 204. Now, I put this clip in even though it leads to a penalty because, again, look at the defensive split here. Too many men on that short side just covering 10 metres. So if England are prepared to look up and play, they are going to get some joy. And I've seen little bits of evidence that suggest England will do that. It all depends how high their completion rate is. All depends how much England can respond to pressure too. That really is the key dynamic of this game for me. But look at the spacings between the Samoa defence. If England are direct, or even if they go +1 and go direct off the +1, off the half, off the standoff, then they will have some joy because they're going to get passive tackles from Samoa. All through this World Cup analysis, you'll notice that I guess I've been quite, well, for want of a better term, critical about some of the tactics or some of the defensive lines. And that's because they're rep sides and they're not like NRL sides or Super League sides that spend all day, every day training together and sometimes for years on end with the same people and the same combinations. So there are bound to be problems. And I think the key thing in World Cup football and in tournament football and for any rep coaches out there, back your attack. Get your attack to play a bit more on their instincts. Don't structure them too much, but give them some structure to play to, because the attack's got more chance of hitting and getting in sync, hitting form and getting in sync than your defensive line sometimes, because the defensive line, obviously, sometimes that intuition of knowing who's on your left and right takes months and months to develop. Okay, so I think it's easier to get your attack flowing through allowing your instincts of your players to flourish. Enjoy your World Cup football.